Good day and welcome to Thesna Talks, another episode, the last for 2019. For those of you who are already celebrating New Year, enjoy it. I always talk about live consciously because I guess if we all lived consciously and were mindful of others, racism would not exist, poverty would not exist, oppression would not exist. It's because we think we're special or better that problems arise. So today, as promised, I want to delve into white tears. Due to racist systems, white people are always given the benefit of the doubt, and black people are always viewed with suspicion. I've previously discussed this in other episodes, so have another look at those on the Fair Digest channel. White tears are often what some white women resort to when they can't get their way. If you can imagine that it looks much like a big tantrum, and though we indulgently look at toddlers doing it, it has deadly consequences when white women do it. So let me tell you about a young boy, 14-year-old African-American boy called Emmett Till. I refuse to call him a man because he wasn't a man, he was a boy, 14, who was lynched on August 28, 1955 in Mississippi after being accused of offending a white woman in her family's grocery store. The brutality of his murder and the fact that his killers were acquitted drew attention to the long history of violent persecution of African Americans in the United States. The 21-year-old white woman called Caroline Bryant accused Till of flirting with her and went on to tell her husband, who then, in a nutshell, saw her tears, sprung into action with his half-brother, abducted Emmett from his home, brutally beat and mutilated him, and finally shot him in the head and dumped his body in the river. Subsequently, the men were arrested and both found not guilty of murder. If any of you can pause for a moment just to think about what this boy must have endured. Emmett Till posthumously became an icon of the civil rights movement. So I might hear things like, it's in the past though. It happened in 1955. Let's fast forward then to the present. Let us look at the danger of white tears and how often they are believed and given the benefit of the doubt, even when there's evidence to the contrary. That same innocent white woman has now written a book and decided to admit the truth in her book. Emmett Till did not do what she accused him of. But here is the saddest part. Not only did this boy get killed for no reason other than being black, but she now gets to sell her book after having lived a full life. That's not justice, people. That's hate, and hate stemming from racism and white supremacy. We have to do better. In our present times in the States, we see these video clips on social media of white women confronting African American men, women as well, but mostly African American men, about trivial stuff, about their very existence. And when all else fails, and the man stands and refuses to back down, they cry and automatically dial 911. And the police, often white men in blue, ask no questions, but come rushing to her aid with dire consequences, often fatal consequences to the actual victim of racism. In South Africa, Vicky Momberg called a black police officer the K word, I believe, approximately about 50 times. And some white people found excuses for her disgusting behavior by saying she was traumatized. And the police officer wasn't. Given our oppressive past, As a human rights activist, I never saw one post suggesting counseling for the police officer. Maybe I never looked hard enough, or maybe there were just too many white people defending Miss Momberg. There are numerous times this happens to black and brown men by white women, with no consequences for them having lied or antagonized their victims, yet they walk off into the sunsets like the heroes that they aren't. Here's the problem though, because not all white women do this. I know it's only a few, but those few are so vocal and believable that no one stops to question what would happen if a black or brown man really attacked a white woman and she is then not believed because of these white women who lie. As a black woman, I'm frustrated and angry at this injustice and disregard for black lives. But if I was a white woman, I would be livid because of the reputational damage these women are causing to white women who do not do this. And so it would seem that a minority is influencing outcomes of a majority. We need to stand together and fight the scourge, because it is a scourge. As women, we have a hard enough time in this world, women across all races, with our tiny faction attempting to change the way white women are viewed. Next week, I'll be talking about colorism and the prejudice that we, as black and brown people, subject our brothers and sisters to. Thank you so very much for joining me. Remember, we can only do this if we work together. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful new year. And let's be careful out there. See you next week. Bye.